Questions from mine. I'm bad now. I like doing this once a month now.
Okay, so today the title of my workshop is State of the Church, Reimagining Community. And I picked this title because we are in a post-crisis COVID era,
Buckle. Yeah.
but COVID is still COVID is still with us. In fact, yesterday I was talking to some colleagues and they said, oh, there's a BA6 variant in New Jersey. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me. This is ridiculous. I just got the third booster for the 4 and 5. So I think we're out of the post-crisis COVID time. But as you know, things have changed in the state of the church. So let's look at these questions. And I'll give you a moment to jot down some answers or to think about some things. Are you a member of an organization? Yes, no. You can jot down what organization you might be a member of. You might say, yeah, I'm a member of 5 of them because I'm lucky enough to be retired. Jot those down for me. Now, out of those organizations, which ones met during COVID, maybe online, like a Zoom? Which ones met in person? And I didn't put this, but which ones stopped meeting altogether? Now, do you have family? And family is defined any way you want to define family, whether they're blood relatives, whether they're chosen family. Do you have family who live at least an hour away from where you live? What about 5 hours? And what about across the country or the world? Now, of the family that you're thinking about or writing about, how often do you get to see them face to face? Now, it may have been one way during COVID. I know there are folks who have elderly relatives in nursing homes, and you just weren't allowed to come in during the height of the crisis. But right through here, how often are you able to see them face to face or Zoom, especially if they're across the country, or even just chat on the phone? Are you on Facebook? Now, I should say, do you use Facebook? Because I'm on Facebook, but I'm a really bad Facebooker. Yes, no, and if you are, how often do you see your Facebook friends in person? Now, if you have 900 Facebook friends, you don't have to write all that down, but basically, All right, let's talk a little bit about church and just keep writing while I'm chatting. So what was your church attendance like on an average Sunday morning? Pre-COVID. So that would be what, February 2020? Hard to remember. For 2019. What was your average church attendance like pre-COVID? Now, this isn't Christmas, this isn't Easter, this isn't Mother's Day, the CME Christians. This is Green Stole, Ordinary Time, Church Day. And then how has it changed? What about now? Now I'm talking about in person on this question. Is what was church attendance in person right now? And if you don't know, that's okay, but just guess, because I see a couple pastors in here just started their stuff. And then do you offer an online or what's been known now as hybrid worship option for church? And it should say Zoom, live stream, etc. Because some people record their services and people can watch them later. Okay, now here's true confession time. Have you ever missed a worship service? And if so, what were you doing? Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's okay if you write, I was playing golf. Okay, the Lord knows what you were doing. I just want you to know what you were doing. What were you doing when you missed worship? Now, I'm going to hold the last question until later. So if you have finished at least jotting down some notes, turn to one of your neighbors and just talk a little bit about your answers. Share some of your answers. Introduce yourselves because you're from different churches. So one or two, groups of two, groups of three, it's okay.
Okay. What church are you at? Oh, okay. So how to answer the oh, I'm sorry. So, my word about the one that I that we sponsored into Christian education. And that's pretty much what they part of so we did. Okay. But it's small, great planes, small connections. We have anywhere from center in Iowa, South Dakota, It's how, did we, what they were saying. Wrong, that's first. Meetings were shorter. It was really, it is really, we're still doing like 36, I'm out here drawing.
Make sure everyone has a chance to share.
In that, in the business. Then we start chatting. You know, that's why we get way out. How about yours? Yeah. But we didn't.
All right, 2 more minutes. All right, Katie, let's finish up.
So you're still. Yeah.
All right, gang. We're going to have a chance to share with one another. Okay, so let's talk about this as a group. How many of you are members of, not including church, groups, clubs, or organizations? Okay, yeah. Good number. How many of these organizations met online? Hold up your fingers. Did any of them meet online? Yeah. My yoga group met online. Yeah, that was interesting. It still does. Okay. All right. So some of them met online while during the COVID crisis. All right. How many of you have family that live about an hour away? Okay. How about farther away? Yeah. How about across the country, like in Oregon or in France or, okay. Yeah. So how many folks keep in contact with those family members regularly? Yeah, okay. So how many maybe on the phone? Cell phone. All right, good, yeah. Zoom. Some Zoomers, yeah. How about getting on an old-fashioned plane, train, or automobile and going out and seeing them? Okay. So many of us have family that are across the country and yet we keep in touch with them pretty regularly. Okay, how many on Facebook? Okay, a few. How many of you use Facebook? Okay, you. And how many of your Facebook friends, what percentage of your Facebook friends do you see in person? Yeah, you see Facebook friends in person, okay, how often?
Frequently.
Frequently, okay. How about the rest of you? 3?
Yeah, some of them frequently, and I have met a few people actually through Facebook and met them in person as well.
Okay, getting to know new people on Facebook. All right, how many of you would say it's infrequent? Okay, so it's just mostly catching up on the news. All right, so let's talk about your congregation. What was attendance like pre-COVID? Now, I know everybody comes from different size churches, okay? So based on your membership and the percentage of members, so I'm just gonna make this math easy. If you have 100 members on the roll and you usually have 60 members in church, okay? That kind of percentage. So of a normal percentage, how many of you were seeing halfway decent attendance at worship? Pre-COVID. Yeah, like kind of representative, okay. How many of you are seeing that same number today? Okay, yeah. What's your church? Granny, what's your church?
Golden, but part of that is still,
Okay,
it's not all people in the church. A good half of the number of people attending are attending by Zoom.
aha, that's it. So you have, excuse my language, butts in the pews, okay, for some. But you've got a population on Zoom. Now, here's a question for thought. How many people who attended your church in person pre-COVID have not returned for in-person or online? Do any of you have members that you can identify that just left? Okay, okay, left. All right. So this is a nationwide phenomenon across denominations. Even in the mega churches. Okay, a lot of folks get upset about that. They're, oh, the mega church down the street, they seem to have a lot of people. No, they are experiencing the exact same thing that we are in Presbyterian churches, Methodist churches, mainline churches. Folks are opting, okay, to be online or not at all. All right. So look at this last question on your sheet. If you've attended your church for 5 years or more, that's just kind of a random number. But in other words, you know these people. Okay, you know what's been going on in your church, the pastors, maybe some of you are on session or deacons or trustees. Just for a minute, name some of the changes that have taken place in your congregation that are not related to COVID. Yeah, what are some of the changes? Anybody want to yell out, Carol?
Several of the older members have passed on, and there are no people.
Okay, that's a big change.
Yeah.
Susan.
Not in the congregation, but our free parking lot brought from our church has been demolished. There's no close-by parking in downtown church, and some members are not able to use the house, so they're going to build their wall at the policy
Oh,
or stroller. They have young children, so it is a movement.
the parking garage across from her church has been demolished. And there's a shuttle that can take folk to church back and forth, but if they're differently abled, that shuttle is not always an option. That's a big external change. Yes.
We've had some staff turnover.
Yeah, that's a big change. Therese and then Susan.
Staff turnover being the pastor, so we've been without a pastor, all pastor for 2 years. Had to be creative. We have, a pastor and moderator who preaches, hybrid service for us 2 Sundays a month. And our minister of music who is a Baptist minister, actually preaches on 2 other Sundays, and we fill in with elders and so on when there's a 5th Sunday. So we've had to be very creative.
Okay, no installed pastor. They have a pastor that preaches twice a month, the music director preaches twice a month, and elders alternate preaching. Susan, and then I saw a hand over here.
So our choir has gotten older, and well, this is COVID related, but we did learn about music videos, so we are incorporating some of those.
Okay, use of video music. And then
Well, we had, new pastors coming as well during COVID. But that's worked out, but I would say a big change was with sports, happening on Sunday mornings now, we kind of changed from, having Sunday school for every single grade, now it's kind of like one joint Sunday school for kids. Definitely a different model.
okay, different model of Sunday school. Yes.
How similar to that.
Susan?
Your name is Susan? Yes.
Susan's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
In our children and youth and the younger families.
Okay, so that was changing even before COVID. Okay, so my point and your point might very well be that changes are happening in your churches even before the pandemic. So change is really nothing new, so to speak. It's been happening, maybe it felt like a gradual change, like with a parking lot demolition, that's a pretty big shift. Sunday schools, somebody woke up and said, you know what, we're just not getting the kids like we used to. We need to have a conversation about this. So change is always happening in the church. And it's kind of like that terrible thing about a crab in boiling water, you drop the crab and they're like, ah! But if you drop them in cold water and then heat it up, the crab doesn't have that realization of, oh, I'm boiling. And so it's that same kind of dynamic a lot of times with change. All right, so let's look at the very top here where it says state of the church. George and Burdetta White are elders at Lockford Presbyterian Church, which is located in the Baltimore area. And every day they have a prayer feed, and they call it Prayer Warriors. It's just wonderful. And there's no inclusive language in this, so this is where God has him, but I copied it directly from the prayer. And they write, when God pushes you to the edge of difficulty, should be a comma, trust God fully, because 2 things can happen. Either God will catch you when you fall, or God will teach you how to fly. And many of you have heard that. I've never heard that before. And I thought, I'm going to stick this on my forehead like I did in Deuteronomy, because that is really wonderful. All right, next page. And Mary Spears, welcome. I have a handout. You have a share. You can jot down your own notes. All right. So here's the word on the street about what's happening in COVID and in our time of community. And I try to reference where these things are coming from. So first, the bad news, all right? This particular article from ABC News on COVID, 19 forces nationwide reckoning for churches. Okay, so this was an article that came out right after COVID. And it talks about the virtual services are not sustainable in the long term. Now, this is ABC's opinion, okay? Because people essentially are not giving financially when they're not in the church proper. How many of you have experienced that or know that that might be an issue in your church? Okay, giving is down. I've talked to a number of pastors who have that issue, okay? So they're more likely, according to this article, to donate in person. Now, look at this next sentence. The morale of the community is negatively impacted without human interaction. Now, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Turn to the word on the street. It should be on page 3. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have my script. Yeah, we're gonna look at the statistics in a minute. Yeah, thank you, sorry. Yeah, page 3. So according to ABC, you're not gonna get any money. And everybody's gonna be depressed if you don't meet in person. Now, how many of you actually thought that way at the beginning of the pandemic? When everything had to shut down and you weren't having church? You don't have to raise your hand. Now, all of you are optimists. But I got a lot of calls. Oh, no. What's my church gonna do? Nobody's gonna come back. Our money is down. How are we gonna pay? And the presbytery, as soon as we found out we had to shut down all the churches, non-virtually, but in person, we developed a COVID relief fund. And those were grants given to churches because many of the churches were not able to pay their staff. And this was right before the PPP loans came out, but we wanted to make sure that presbytery church members, staffs had some money. So that just in case nothing was coming in, you wouldn't have to fire your administrator or your music director. And we were very concerned about that. Okay, something else is happening during the pre and post, now post crisis COVID. It's called the Great Resignation. How many of you heard that on the news? The Great Resignation. What's that old country song? Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. There's a whole lot of people that woke up one morning and said, I'm done. I'm done. Now, some of us can't afford to wake up in the morning and say I'm done. Okay, but it was so many people that did that it made the news. And one of the great resignation jobs affected are those of church pastorates. Yeah, pastors are leaving their churches pre-crisis COVID and even now. Subtle and complex shifts in how clergy see their jobs and themselves. And one of the things that I talk to pastors about a lot is we didn't go to seminary for this. We went to seminary, those of us who want to be career church pastors, and I was one years ago. We want to come in and see people in the pews and shake hands and have coffee hour. And even if the church was growing or declining, that was sort of our stage. That's changed. And many pastors have not made that emotional shift. They're smart enough to know, okay, now I'm looking up here and saying, hello, everybody on the screen and welcome Facebook Live. But that wasn't the emotional experience that fed them. And so a number of pastors are realizing, I'm not cut out for this. The anxiety in the system is great among church members. I was an elder before I was clergy. So I know what it's like to sit in the pews and think, oh my God, something is changing here. And so the anxiety of elders have created a couple things. One, people are like, I got a chance to see my grandkids. I'm not coming on Sunday, even though it's the biggest Sunday of the year. I'm going here. Or a lot of anger going on. Well, the pastor was not able to visit my dying mother because of all these COVID restrictions. I didn't get what I needed. Or I never liked this church anyway. I didn't live there. You know, COVID really unearthed a lot of things for members as well. So there's stress on pastors to have to learn a new skill overnight. There's stress on members because their lives and their family situation has changed and their church relationships are different. And nobody's happy. Okay. So some folk are trying to call it the great realignment. And I'll say one more thing on this. One of the members of one of our churches said that he had a conversation with one of the members of the church that just has not come back. And he said to this particular elder, you know, I was a faithful church member and you know, I liked going on Sunday, but now that I've been away, do I really want to come back to that church? Because there were things there that, you know, weren't feeding my soul or I didn't like. And everybody's trying to recreate what they had before. Do I really want to come back to that? So that's something to think about. So now let's broaden it. Why is religion, this is what was in the article, but why is Christianity worth defending? What does it do for society? Why is your church worth existing? That's deep. Why is the presbytery worth existing? You know, what are you doing for society? And I think a number of people who were already oriented toward more hands-on ministry have taken that opportunity. Well, I gotta sit in church for an hour when I could be out doing a habitat build, or I could go down to Florida for disaster relief. You know, folks are kind of wondering, well, you know, what is sitting in the pew doing for me? Well, why do I have to follow this dogma? I can go out and do good by myself. And so I think that is something to think about when we look at people that never returned, either online or in person. What are they doing? What are they thinking? Where are they being fed if not in the church? Okay, so here's another one from Christianity Today. And this guy is pulling the Band-Aid off the wound here, just ripping it off. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your church. Okay, is it going back to the way it was in 2018? Some of you might go, oh, thank God it's not. Others might say, no, we wanted to try to go back to the way it was. It's not going back. Not going back. Sorry. Okay, and I love this. They're coming back later, clearly aren't coming back, ever. And that's a terrible word. All right, so here's true confession time for your general presbyter. I love being in the churches. I love going to church. I love visiting people. I like drinking coffee. I like saying hi to everybody. I like listening to choir. I get to hear 65 different sermons over the course of a year and a half. But give me the option on a dreary, rainy day, and I can log on. I admit, I've done it. I've done it. You know, before I didn't have the option. I did not have the option. And I'm just going to call a pastor's name out. You know, if I want to hear Mary Kay from St. John United preach, I just log on. I don't have to get up. I can be in pajamas. Easter Sunday, this is a terrible story. But the Easter Sunday before this last Easter, I got up, I had on my bunny slippers, I, you know, put you know, some halfway decent clothes on, but they were like sweats. I had my coffee over here, and I had my little communion elements, and I turned on Easter with my feet up on the coffee table. That was Easter. And I mean, it was painful. And I didn't realize how painful it was until I returned to that church in person. And they started Jesus Christ is risen today, and I burst into tears. So I realized deep down inside, I needed that community. But for that day, I was okay. And I think what's happening is that people are feeling that same way, and maybe some of you are too. People don't come to church for a variety of reasons, you know, and other times they just nowadays have the option of feeling. So what are you gonna do about that? Okay, so look at this last big fat paragraph here. We live in an on-demand society, okay? We can fight it, or we can get creative, should be a space, in how we deliver the word. What is wrong with my typing? A word of God, okay? This is what church online platforms can deliver. There are some good things that can come out of that. And I love this sentence from this article. Can't get the kids up? No worries. Sick? Not a problem, okay? You can get to church anytime you want. All right, it's like your on-demand TV show, you're gonna miss it. That's all right, I'll just, record it, or I'll watch it on Netflix, or I'll, do something. We all have these options. Now, tabletop discussion here. How has the current situation influenced how you do or see the church in this digital age? So get back in your little groups and talk about how this current situation with online church, with some people in the pew and others not coming back, how has that influenced you in this new digital age? We'll take a few minutes.
Yeah.
We be a group? Sure. Why not?
Carl.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so you're not.
Well, one thing, I was talking about this.
You're not.
All of a sudden, all the places church treasurers now online giving back.
Oh, yeah.
They found out that mostly they discovered out very new people online is not getting. Yes, they're charged or. Yeah. All the younger ones do what they do all the time.
I'm concerned when I hear about this is true projection that people are still kind of going and giving their business.
Well, I was going to retire anyway.
I was not like ever often reminded right in the pew when offering came up to get my phone out and do whatever, so it hasn't really changed much in that regard.
I was already giving services.
Right. I used to do it.
Yes, yes, yes.
I want to do right side, the offering.
Couple more minutes.
A lot of our older people and some people who were attached to the church and don't live in the area anymore. All these people came back and not only since it was just the service, but committee meetings and other things, some of the people that built the issue. So, like, they were involved, yeah.
Yeah, the church, I'm sort of. Go half a year, that's Florida or something like that. And a lot of it, were there all through the year.
Right.
People are very connected. Right. 6 months, so.
Well, it's been said.
Stand.
Yeah, but then it was. Wherever they were going, they wouldn't go there.
All right, one more minute. All right, gang.
That's a great idea. Everybody online can hear.
All right, folks, let's come on back. In mind and spirit. Okay, so the red chart you have on the second page is FYI. It's a study that was done from Christianity Today about regular churchgoers. And the first line is attended in person. Then the second line is only attended online. And the third is neither. So you can see that it's sort of good news that at least in evangelicals and mainline Protestants, of the regular churchgoers, this is the first one. Of the evangelicals, 75% of the folks are going to church. Mainline Protestants, 67%. So that's still 2/3 of people that are returning. And then you look at Black Protestants, and that was very interesting to me. That's like almost 50% of the church. So a large number of African-American Protestants have opted not to come back. And that can be attributed to health demographics, age, a number of different things there. So that's just FYI. And you can take those statistics or look that chart up and read the full article in Christianity Today. Okay, so we're on the page that says, so now what? That might be page 4 in your packet. And I love this, this word here. We have to retrain people. Okay, how many of you went to church as a little kid? All right, you know, for me, it was just what you did. And if you didn't go, at least my mother informed me that not going to church was not an option. Okay, and I was one of those young adults that went to church too. I mean, I just grew up in the church. So I love the way this person says we have to retrain people why they should bother to assembly. Okay, that's very important. And many of us who grew up in churches, we're used to our church. You know, we come in and we know that this is going to be predictable, and that's going to be predictable, and we're going to have the Harvest Festival and the Homecoming Festival and the Christmas children's baskets and, you know, all that warm and fuzzy stuff that all of us are used to. But for somebody who has decided to detach, it would be interesting if someone, and someone is always someone over there, got that from Steve Noble. You know, that somebody, that mystery somebody over there should call these members the 12%, the 7%, the 14%. Why aren't you coming back? You know, just ask them. You know, don't make the assumption. Because I think that in many ways, you may get some information that you didn't have before. Well, you know, I've been in this church 20 years and it's just boring. You know, I'm going over to my neighbor's church, or I'm watching, God forbid, Pastor so-and-so online in Chicago. You know, and that's where I'm getting my spiritual nourishment. It's happening, okay? So the retraining is not just with the whip. It's more so the conversation and the conversation within the congregation of why do we exist? Why do we exist? And Jennifer does excellent workshops on that. Why are we here? What is God calling us to be and do other than just friends? You know, why do we exist? And to get that out to others. Pivot, next paragraph. Pivot, swapping old expectations. I know why my typing said I had hand surgery. Or healthier realities, okay? Churches, now look at this one, have always been dependent on a few members. And all of you all as elders know that. Like, I've served 49 terms on session, I'm not doing it anymore. Okay, why can't the young people step up and serve? How many churches mentor young people to step up and serve on session? Yeah, one. It's not common. And there's one of the churches in our Presbyterian that shall remain nameless. The people on session are all 80 years old, and the young people actually said, yeah, we want to serve on session. And the 80-year-olds go, they're not ready. Well, what do you do? You know, to help these folks? How are you not, you're not ready? Control. And that's a C word in church. We want to keep things the way they are. And somebody comes in, a young person with some ideas, we might very well shut them down. Because it's not the way we used to do things, we're doing things now. We are dependent on a few key people. Presbyterian has that problem too. Here's a nice one. Most people want to be together. They may not need it every week. Okay, so I think that's important to know too. How do you keep these infrequent attenders engaged? Can you see them as off-campus community? My daughter is a college student and she commutes. And I love her school because they've got tons of activities for commuters. They even have a whole board for commuters, a whole committee, a whole group of students that are in a particular group, committee, club to address the needs of commuters. I like it. You're not just saying, oh, all activities are for you on campus, sorry. Oh no, commuters party like it's 1999. It's great. Okay, look at this one from my good friend Sarah Hayden. The shift is from seeking to attract newcomers to buildings and programs. Come and join our church. Okay, that's what we say on the little cue card. We're understanding ourselves as sent people. Wow. Okay, we're not designed necessarily to be in the building. My favorite saying is get out of the salt shaker. You know, we're used to just being in. Come into our church, come into our space, come into our programs, join us. How many of us joined them? And this is what Sarah is trying to say, that God is already doing work in the world. God is not limited to the building. Why are we? Why are we? And I may be preaching to the choir because I know most of you know, but it's very true. And then here's one. Follow up. Now, here's a lot of the reason why pastors are kind of tired these days. Okay, we've got a deacon committee that's supposed to visit the shut-ins and whatever. And okay, let them follow up with the people who are coming. Or, oh, we didn't get enough people at the meeting, so nobody got called. Guess what, elders? That's your job. You all are keeping in touch with your flock. That's not a special deacon board. That's elders. You know, help your pastor make those connections to find out what the folks need. Okay, what the folks need. And if I were attending worship virtually all the time, and somebody called me to say, hey, Jackie, how you doing? You know, what's going on? You know, we're kind of talking to folks about what I would be so happy. You know, because my church cares about me. They don't just see me as a little box on the screen or a reprobate Christian that's not coming back. Okay, they really care about what I think. And also realize that if you do have another campus, guess what? That's the reality. What kind of things are you going to do for your online campus? What kind of Bible studies, events, meetups, all of that can you do with your online community? They're part of your community, just like your family in Chicago is part of your family, which is why I had you do the exercise. All of us live in a world where people are scattered and yet we keep our relationships. It should be no different in the church. And then the last one, this is your happy moment here. Offering online church services is the perfect way, said this enthusiastic person, to let potential new visitors worship your church before attending in person. We have churches in this presbytery that have grown because somebody found them online. And they're like, this is a cool place. And so they either reached out and said, hey, I want to be part of your church. Can you put me on the newsletter? Or they've gotten out of their bunny slippers and come to the building. And you know, that is, we don't even think about that. It's also an ideal way to reach people who are looking to move into the area. So when you do your welcome, hi, welcome to St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. We're located in Mount Airy, Maryland. If you're in the area or moving to the area, we would be happy to greet you. Please let us know. If you're on vacation in the great state of Maryland and you'd like to come to church on Sunday, please visit us. You know, there's so many ways we can use our evangelical language to reach our online community. Often people who are looking for new churches before they make a move will view different online services to see which church fits their needs best. Maybe, friends, that's you. Maybe that's you. So in closing, stay in community. Stay in community. Don't treat your onliners like they're just on the screen. You are the body of Christ. You're the body of Christ in the pews now, in the chairs. You're the body of Christ online. And you're also the body of Christ in between. So live that reality out. Change has been happening all around you, in your family, in your life, and now it's in the church. How will you stay connected? Any questions?
I've got a comment, you know, about giving, and that is that we trained our members to do online giving, which is like regular, and so we didn't see our pledge income, then, you know, the non-pledge was affected by not getting person, but the pledge income has like been maintained.
Yes, retrain your folks to give online, and make sure again you have a website. You know, every Friday I go on the computer to see which church I want to visit. And there are some of our churches that do not have websites, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It could just be a one pager with your worship time, your address, and a few pictures of you having fun. That's all, and make sure you change it, because on Easter, if I'm looking for somewhere to go, I don't want to see, he is born in Bethlehem. Okay, make sure you change it, but make sure you have an online presence so that people can give. All right, Em.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you again, Jackie. We're gonna take a break until 10:45. It's just about 15 minutes. Again, bathrooms are out back that way. Coffee and snacks are out there. And then after the break at 10:45, you're either going to come in here and do Presbyterian polity for elders with Carl Wilton. Carl has taught polity at Princeton Theological Seminary. I didn't have you, but I know others who did, who have loved you, so we're very grateful to have you here. And then Shannon Weston is going to be teaching or leading a discussion on building trust. On building trust and group dynamics, and that is right across the hall in room 101. Shannon is an executive coach and consultant in addition to being the pastor of Ashland Presbyterian Church. So it'll be an engaging conversation. So enjoy your break and we'll see you in just a few minutes.